This video probably feels weird following the really somber OJ examination, so I hope you're not experiencing any case of whiplash.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
I am a human being despite how robotic my voice sounds. This is not AI.
Oh my dear God. Are you one of those single tier people?
And so I do want to show you different sides of the channel. With that said, I want to welcome you all to my first installment of the What I Watch series, going over reviews for what I watch for every month. I'm open to suggestions too, and you can vote on topics, movie and television shows that you think I should check out on my Patreon page. I'm also working on a Discord server for my Patreon audience to discuss topics from the essays in the future, so stay tuned. I really appreciate all of the love from the past few weeks, and in general, it always means a lot. And speaking of Patreon, special shout out to my first ever patron, Uminya. Hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Every bit helps to build the channel and to keep it improving, so it's much appreciated. If you want to see more of my film reviews and past watches, follow me on Letterboxd for more. Since this is the first series, I thought to include some of the memorable films from my December watches as well that I caught during the holidays. And so with that said, let's dive right in. Went into this one with low expectation, as I'm definitely a child of the ABC Family reruns of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, starring the iconic performance from Gene Wilder in the titular role. I'll be quite honest, I was more than pleasantly surprised by this movie, functioning as a tale of class conflict using a metaphor of Willy Wonka's industrious entrepreneurial spirit.
The greedy beat the needy every time, Mr. Wonka. Guess it's just the way of the world.
Against a cabal of chocolatiers who act as stand-ins for the corrupt banking system.
He only charges a sovereign a chocolate, so anyone can afford them. Even the... you know,
The poor?
What?
As they water down the chocolate supply of the city, unbeknownst to the population, like the Federal Reserve dilutes the dollar.
Slugworth, Fickelgruber, and Prodnose have been in cahoots for years, a sort of chocolate cartel, if you will. They've been watering down their chocolate and storing the excess in a secret vault deep beneath the cathedral.
This dark underbelly of capitalism is all held together by the visage of religiosity that is the fallen church.
Guarded round the clock by a corrupt cleric and 500 chocoholic monks.
Temptation is very hard to resist.
The answer to the greed of these monopolizing corporations is a truly free market. And in that sense, the conversation around class warfare in the first version is taken a step further in this movie. Really poignant messaging, especially with the high inflation that we've been dealing with as of late. Really interesting themes I'm willing to explore in a full essay if you'd like me to, so go on Patreon to vote officially. I could be reading too much into it, but that's where the fun is in a Wonka movie. And as a Wonka movie, I think this was a fun excursion that stands on its own. There were so many fun callbacks to the prior works, from Wonka's flair for the theatrical as a magician, or his affinity for golden tickets. I don't think Chalamet has the level of whimsy and mysterious chaotic energy about him that made Wilder's interpretation so great. I was expecting more of this.
So you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
Or maybe even a more modern rendition like this.
Why are you f***ing with me? Why are you f***ing with me? Why are you f***ing with me? Huh? Get the fuck back to work!
But he makes up for it with an earnest kindness that comes full circle in the new rendition of Pure Imagination.
You didn't have to do that.
Of course I did. I gave you my word.
I kept asking if they were going to use it, with the melody hinted at several times in the movie. What a great touch to have it serve as the track for finding a home for yourself, and also as a much needed plug and advertisement for libraries all in one. It's a tune that's as nostalgic as it is hopeful, and that's what this movie is all about, holding on to hope, and that life has more in store for us than whatever constructs, real or perceived, are limiting you from reaching your potential. I highly recommend it, if only for the fun chocolate and tasty songs.
Strike that. Reverse it.
I want to apologize to Nolan's fan base in advance here.
You are a worthless, friendless, lip little piece of shit whose mommy left daddy when she figured out he wasn't Eugene O'Neill.
I got to finish Oppenheimer last month, It took a couple of watches to get through, but I think I've come to the conclusion after watching this film why Nolan's filmography is so grating to me. It really reeks of self-importance. I can't help but feel that he sees himself as this sort of brilliant mind that's compelled by this presumption. I'll probably get a lot of flack for this, but it's always hard to ignore that pretension in his work, especially as of late. It feels like he just wants me to be impressed. And after 20 years in the business, I can't tell if that's insecurity or immaturity. It's like a child that has to go ta-da after every performance. His work is spectacle-fueled awe, strung together with shoddy writing and grandstanding to deliver his message, which is always that love is the answer to all things, despite not having felt that love in any of his films, which makes it quite paradoxical actually. His movies are usually this cold and distant shadows to the form that he chases so fervently, which is why he has to beat you over the head with exposition. Sure, Matthew McConaughey really cried into that TV screen with all he had, but that's exactly why I can't stand Nolan. It's 3 hours of nonsensical exposition, forced complexity that doesn't really go anywhere, faux high concept that's actually rudimentary at best, since neither he nor the audience have enough time to understand these elements or portray them beyond their basic comprehension in the time allotted. The effort to painstakingly hire a physicist to capture black holes in their sincerest depiction just for the bragging rights, since that was the only coherent point to the work itself. It tells me that he has no other way to connect with his audience besides trying to wow them. There's no real human connection. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate it, and I'm glad that his work exists, but I find it sorely lacking, and Oppenheimer is no different. If anything, I think it's a nail in the coffin to watching any of his future films, since I don't think he'll be shedding any of these habits anytime soon.
I'm upset!
And so with that said, I'm gonna beat you all to the punch and say, I am become hater, destroyer of ratings. Now, movie reviews are subjective, and so you're probably gonna hate me for this next one as well. I did watch Tombstone. As soon as this movie started, the first thought that occurred to me was, man, Sam Elliott has been old forever. My second thought was apparently Mark Wahlberg's Four Brothers was a remake of this Western. From the action to the dialogue, it really lives up to its hype as a good old-fashioned action Western, and has inspired me to learn Latin to intimidate my enemies.
Judaea sotella non ego.
Juventus stultorum magister.
In pace requiescat.
Doc Holliday is a new favorite character of mine, portrayed by Val Kilmer, killed this role, and learning that the film was loosely based on a true story gives me the hope that I can someday ooze even a fraction of that level of cool someday.
Ooze. It's nice, right? It's ooze.
Damn! Ooze! I like that.
I just need to get started on my tuberculosis and opium addiction. All jokes aside, this was a fun movie that I'll put as highly recommended.
I'll be there!
But only if when someone asks you who recommended it, you tell them that I'm your Huckleberry.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Next up is Warrior. I always revisit this movie as a sort of feel-good story of brotherhood. Warrior is probably one of my favorite films, with a tour de force performance from Nick Nolte, who probably sees a lot of himself in his portrayal as the alcoholic father seeking redemption.
I got 1,000 days, Brendan. 1,000 days sober today.
Well, it's great, Pop, but it doesn't change anything.
What do you mean doesn't change anything? Have a heart, Brendan.
Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy play the brothers at odds who overcome their differences in the cage. As a younger brother, I can tell you getting sunned is never fun, so I really feel for Tommy in this movie. But in all seriousness, I find myself always flip-flopping between who's right. Edgerton's character, who's fighting for his family's future.
I get that. I'm asking you, is there something else you can do? Not the bank, you. Can you shift things around, restructure?
You refinanced twice already.
Because you advised us to do that. You told me.
Well, I presented you with that option, but...
Or Hardy, who's using the moment to affirm his past decisions.
Mom needed you. I needed you. You're my big brother. You bailed on me.
You leave, you get the opposite. Okay? You leave, you get to bury people.
I think it just goes to show that family's complicated, but at the end of the day, it's all love, even when it doesn't look that way. And we carry each other, our burdens and triumphs, whether we realize it or not. It's a great flick, can't recommend it enough, and Nick Nolte being consumed by the spirit of Ahab as he drowns in his sorrows is award-worthy acting.
After shit! You got twice!
I finally watched the Jumpstreet series. This movie runs on pure gas, or better yet,
runs on leftover fry oil from Hunan Palace.
It's a great script and even greater chemistry between the leads. I didn't know the pairing of Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum could be so on point, but pleasantly surprised at Tatum's comedy chops.
Titanium has a nuclear reaction with a flux capacitor. Carry the two, changing its atomic isotoner into a radioactive spider. Fuck you, science!
I highly recommend it, if only for seeing Dave Franco's legitimate fear of prison.
I don't want to go to jail. You know what happens to a handsome guy like me in jail? It rhymes with grape. It rhymes with grape.
Ah, shit! No! That is not happening right now! No!
Meta storytelling that follows the buddy cop beats perfectly and still manages to surprise me. When I looked up the directors for this film, I can't say that I'm surprised. The mastery of callbacks, the self-awareness, it makes the Spider-Verse series make much more sense now. I highly recommend both films, if only to see Jonah Hill go from a Spanish accent to French to American in the span of 5 seconds during a botched drug deal.
When you were telling the story last night, you had so much detail. The detail was so rich. It was rich detail. Go into incredibly descriptive details of the story so we all know.
Oh, yes.
This one is probably an oldie but a goodie to a lot of you. I'm really late to this one, but it's one of my new favorite movies. It's a classic Christmas movie that puts an interesting spin on the story of It's a Wonderful Life. Instead of the selfless George Bailey, however, our main character is much more akin to a young Mr. Potter. The millionaire playboy Jack Campbell, portrayed by the talented Nicolas Cage, really sells the conflict of the story. The movie explores the question, what happens when you lose the material world, and all that there is to gain in it, for a chance at contentment. A very poignant message and very much with the times, as we're bombarded each day by the lack in our lives.
Wearing this suit actually makes me feel like a better person.
Maybe a penthouse suite alone on Christmas isn't as comfortable as sharing a warm fire with your loved ones. This is another one that I can see being a full essay, just exploring the Kierkegaardian juxtaposition between the aesthetic life versus the ethical life.
But you're dealing with fire here, all right, man? The Fidelity Bank and Trust is a tough creditor. You make a deposit somewhere else, they close your account forever.
To put it simply, if one lives their life entirely for the aesthetic, then they are actually sacrificing the source of true pleasure, which occurs when you value others over yourself. The ethical life is one that makes the ultimate sacrifice, and is thus rewarded with the evasive beatitude that we all seek. In Kierkegaard's argument, marriage is sacrificing quantity for quality, shallowness for depth, imagination for reality.
I found it at an outlet store. Look, I know it's a knockoff, but I think it's gonna look great on you.
All the faults and triumphs of a single person, the good and the bad, and not an image we use to make ourselves look better. Cage finds out the difference between a life worth living and a life worth having. The ending did start to lean on the melodramatic, but there was enough charm to carry it through. It's a very timely message, and classic Cage ticks make this one a very fun watch.
I'm such a prick now, but maybe permanent acid trap!
I highly recommend it, if only for Nick Cage singing the Delphonics on VHS.
All I know is la 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 means I love you. La 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 means I love you.
Next is Journey to the West. From the director that brought you Kung Fu Hustle comes another irreverent comedy about the legendary Sun Wukong and the journey to the West. Brilliantly told, director Stephen Chow is back in form for this unique take on the classic tale. I haven't laughed this hard since Shaolin Soccer.
One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
The two leads have great chemistry, and the main character's sacrifice is heartfelt and instructional on what it means to overcome pain and attain peace. I think what I like most about the story of Buddha is that he gives up the world rather than retreating from it. There's a huge divide in living for yourself and living without the self, and most of us are the former. Giving up yourself, and thus shedding the ego, is nearly impossible in a world driven exclusively by desire. and so the fear of losing ourselves holds us back from enlightenment, because it means losing our desires. It's stories like this one that return that perspective in a lighthearted way for us all to enjoy, and perhaps strive for. Highly recommend, if only to witness Bigfoot Kung Fu be defeated by a monkey-sized nail in the ground. A Quiet Place can eat his heart out. And last but certainly not least is Paddington.
Oh, look, Henry, it's perfect.
After watching Wonka, I wanted to see what else the director Paul King had to offer.
That's right. This will suit me down to the ground. Thank you very much.
And don't let Paddington's beady dead eyes fool you.
And stop staring at me with them big old eyes.
This movie is full of heart and pure joy. I can't remember a movie that made me want to just enjoy being content in a long time. A work with no vanity to it. No illusions to play for emotion, just good-hearted cinema. Really recommend it, if only to spur wonder in the recipe of what's in those marmalade sandwiches.
Marmalade? My uncle always kept a marmalade sandwich in his hat, in case of emergency.
It was cool to see Kevin Novak also, outside of his role as Wadge in Four Lions. We'll always have Rubber Dinghy Rapids.
Rubber Dinghy Rapids.
Yeah?
Yeah?
You with me?
Rubber Dinghy Rapids.
Yeah, Rubber Dinghy Rapids.
Well, that's what I watched for January. If you like this series, let me know in the comments. I'm taking suggestions on interesting movie or media for future reviews if you have them on my Patreon. If you like these reviews, check out my letterbox for more. I'm sure you'll enjoy some of the blurbs and more long-winded takes. Also, a sneak peek into what I've got coming in this series. My socials are pinned in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.